This is Donna Paris from In the Black Canada, and you're logged on to Black Nova Scotia News, because there's always more to the story. My name is Donna Paris. I was born in Truro, Nova Scotia. I didn't live there long. I was about 4.5 years old when I moved to Cornwallis. My dad was in the Navy, and we lived in Cornwallis until about grade 6, with 1 year out for grade 4 in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Went to Dartmouth High, first went to John Martin Junior High, went to Dartmouth High, and then went to Dalhousie. And sometime mid-80s, I moved to Toronto, and that's where I live now.
So where's Cornwallis again?
Cornwallis is in the Annapolis Valley. It was a Cornwallis, what's it called? It was an Armed Forces base. My dad was in the Navy, and so that's where we lived on the base.
And then you moved to Dartmouth.
Yeah, then we moved to Dartmouth. And when in Toronto, among other things, I have lots of other occupations, but I was a school teacher with the Toronto District School Board for about 22 and a half years, and I retired from that in 2019. Well, in 2015, the CBC Radio actually was asking people to write something about what did Black history mean to them. And I heard this on the radio, walked into my house and sat down, and I wrote this piece called I Am Black History. And it sort of chronicles my great-greats down to my greats and my family and then myself about our experiences of being Black in Canada. And I heard from lots of people about, wow, that's my story, or that happened to me too. And so I thought maybe there's a lot of other stories to collect and to be told. And so I approached another woman, and she had a friend, and the three of us got together and started a collective called In the Black Canada. And, when we were trying to come up with the name, Black, if you look it up in the dictionary, has a lot of negative, a lot of negative connotations, I guess. And, but if you're in the black when you're doing accounting, it's a good thing, right? So we said, okay, we're going to be in the black. And then we added Canada to say we're in the Black Canada. And so we did a web series out of Toronto, interviewing Black people in Toronto about their history of coming there and what their lives were like being Black in Canada. And then we did a Windsor project, Windsor, Ontario, where we interviewed people about the many ways they came to live in Windsor. And we did that at the Windsor Art Gallery. I don't think it's called the Windsor Art Gallery anymore. It has a different name, maybe Essex County or something. But anyways, we did a video there, and they actually bought it and put it in their permanent collection. It's great. They live in YouTube, so the web chronicles, we called them, so you can look them up. And we, did an interview. I'm not sure how many people we did, but we broke it up into sections. So like talking about racial profiling, or talking about what your parents told you, different topics. Then we did a bunch of Twitter talks. Like we just started on a Wednesday night at 8:00, join us for a talk, and we just throw out a question and we'd engage with people about those various topics. And so it was great doing that. The three of us had the collective, and then after we did the Windsor project, we disbanded the collective, and I decided to go out on my own and start collecting stories across the country. So I started a new website for In the Black Canada.
And so where does the podcast come in?
Well, in 2019, my partner David and I traveled east. We came to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Prince Edward Island, and we interviewed people. And that was in the fall of 2019. And we intended to go west in 2020. COVID happened, right? Mm-hmm. So that put a kibosh on it. So then I'm trying to think about, what am I going to do? I did all these interviews. I'd like to get that information out to people. And so I decided to start a website. So I started the website, and I would put people's photos that David takes, and I would put clips from the interviews. But then I realized I wanted more. And so I didn't know nothing about how you do a podcast, but I figured it out and taught myself how to do, interviews and how to use GarageBand and SoundCloud and all of those things, and started the podcast in January of 2021.
So those original interviews, were those video interviews or just audio interviews?
Audio. All of it is audio. Yes.
What were your intentions for those?
I just really wanted to get the stories out. I've always loved the sound of radio. I like audio, and I just wanted people to learn about Black history across this country. We've interviewed people from Newfoundland all the way to Vancouver, and have learned a lot of Black history. Learned about the Bog in Prince Edward Island, learned about Hogan's Alley in Vancouver, learned about the Black communities in Alberta and Saskatchewan. There's just so much Black history, and I wanted to have people I didn't want to just talk about the history and give facts. I wanted people to hear narratives, to hear stories from people. Maybe it wasn't their experience, but it was their grandparents or their great-grandparents or even their great-great-grandparents. And I really wanted people to know that Black people have been here a very long time in this country and have contributed, even though there are lots of, like in the West, in Alberta and in Saskatchewan, those communities are there mostly in name only, but they were still there and their descendants are there. Well, my ultimate goal, like I really would like to have an exhibition that travels across the country. I really would, I feel cheated. I feel cheated as a kid who grew up here and went to school here that I didn't know most of this history. I mean, well, I lived across the bridge from the A. Murray McKay Bridge. We still call it the New Bridge. And I was living there in Dartmouth, in Wallace Heights at the time when Africville was going on, when they were tearing down those houses and kicking people out of Africville. I was probably about 14 years old. I knew nothing about that. I mean, I'm right across the bridge from it and I didn't know anything about it. And that's what I've discovered as I traveled this country, that there's lots of Black history that and lots of us don't know about. And so the goal was to have a traveling exhibit that goes across the country, stops at, universities, museums, galleries, wherever, showcasing the people who are part of this Black history. So showing David's photos, having clips from the interviews, having archival footage, perhaps having, like if it's in Halifax, having local entertainments from Halifax, having local people come and do panel discussions, talking about the history of African Nova Scotians, and if it's in Quebec, same idea, having local people from there talking about the history. That's my ultimate goal, is to do that, or our ultimate goal, I should say, David's and mine.